This is Reed Diamond, and you're listening to Fascination Street.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, AV in your ears. That's Ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my boy Steve. Fascination Street, you already know. Let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you?
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Steve Cooper. Steve Cooper has a podcast called Cooper Talk, where he has released over 1,000 episodes. He's at like 1,040 or something ridiculous like that. He interviews everybody from actors to musicians and everything in between, comedians, you name it. A ton of names and faces that you know. He does a great job interviewing. He's been doing it for like 12 or 13 years. He's phenomenal. In this episode, we do talk about that show. We also talk about some of the things that he did before that. He's a stand-up comedian, a touring stand-up comic for like 10 years. And he's worked in different places. We talk about some of those things. It does get a little personal at the beginning. We talk a little bit about some of his health scares and whatnot. And then we talk about his show, Cooper Talk. We talk about some of the guests he's had on, some of the ones that he was surprised he could get. And we bring up a bunch of names that we both have in common as far as guests, which is kind of cool. We also talk about his other podcast, which is primarily a video podcast on YouTube. It is called The Coop Tank, and it is with business people, business icons, business owners, that kind of thing. And it's sort of a roundtable discussion. So go check that out as well. That one is on YouTube. It's called The Coop Tank. Definitely go check out Cooper Talk. Like I said, there's well over 1,000 episodes. You're going to find people you enjoy. He has a roster like you read about. It is nuts. So everybody go check out Cooper Talk. You can also check it out at coopertalk.net, which is his website. And there's a little bit more information on the guests, and there's pictures and whatnot. Definitely go check it out. And this is my conversation with the host of Cooper Talk and the Coop Tank, my friend, Steve Cooper.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Steve Cooper. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? Good to be here. It's a nice day here in New Jersey. Got the windows open. It's been hot lately, and glad to be on your show.
Well, this has been a long time coming. You and I have been going back and forth for years. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get to know you from the beginning, man. It helps us understand how the guests got from where they were to where you are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a town called Cherry HIl, New Jersey. It's about 15 minutes from Philadelphia. Lived there, went to high school there, graduated high school there, went to college in New Jersey down near near Atlantic City to a place then it was called Stockton State College. Now it's Stockton University. Yeah, and I graduated there in 86 with a degree in business.
Well, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your goal to do with that degree?
The degree was for my parents. I knew at one point when I was in college that I wanted to get into stand-up comedy. People had said I was funny. I was never a class clown. I would make people laugh. Like the football team guys all liked me because I would make them laugh. And I was a freshman at Stockton. And they had a contest called Mr. Stockton. It was like Miss America. He came out with like a bathing suit and a nice attire and a talent. These two seniors I hung out with kept saying, do it, do it, do it. So I did it, but I did it as a joke. Greased up my skinny body and wore bright orange slacks. I found these unmatching outfits from guys in the dorm, like an ugly suit. As the talent, I did Rick Springfield air guitar. It blew up, man. I took second. I got on the news. I became all of a sudden popular. Like all these women were digging me. You know what I mean? It was amazing. And that's when I knew, I said, I have to get on stage. So that led to when I got out of college, I got a sales job in the day. I was selling fax machines to date myself.
Oh, what machine?
A fax machine.
I'm going to need you to explain I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, because no, it's funny. I would have sold copiers, but I had a little Fiero. So a copier would have fit in there, but faxes would.
I'm sorry. Did you say Fiero? Okay. I'm going to have to get you to explain. No, just kidding.
That's a great car, man. I love that car. Metallic maroon. But I started hitting the open mics in Philly. And next thing you know, I honed my craft. I got a job on weekends working at the Comedy Factory outlet. You got to see all the Tim Allen and Dice Clay and Bobby Collins and Dom Irrera. And you watched and you absorbed. and I started getting better as an act. And then when it was ready, I just went out on the road. I did about 6 years of comedy on the road.
Okay, so I know you said you got your degree for your parents, but what was their reaction when you were like, "Hey, cool, check it out, I got a degree. Now I'll see you. I'm gonna go do stand up all over the country."
Well, my mom was always very encouraging. She said, if you want to do stand-up comedy, there's a class in Philly called the Learning Addicts. And it used to be a class on the East Coast, I don't know, maybe national, where it was like $35. And there was like 5 classes, like, and then at the end you get on stage. Because I had no idea where to go for comedy. I didn't know anything about it. I just, so that got me going. My mom was supportive. My dad wasn't really until he saw my name in the paper. And then that changed his tone. He's like, okay, he's got some chops for writing about him. So it was cool.
Good thing that he didn't see your greased up, skinny self in that paper, because then he would have wanted you to go be a model.
Exactly. Yeah, he would have said, he would have actually locked me out of the house to put some weight on.
So the first time I ever heard of Cherry HIl, New Jersey, I was working at a bank and I was a mortgage loan underwriter. And one of my customers, they were refinancing their house, I think, and they lived in Cherry HIl, New Jersey. And I live in San Antonio, Texas. And we were talking over the phone, discussing whatever paperwork they needed. And somehow or another, it came up that I was a fan of Frank Sinatra. And these sweet, sweet people from Cherry HIl, New Jersey, mailed me, like in the U.S. mail, they mailed me like 3 or 4 Frank Sinatra vinyls that they had in their collection. And then from then on, I was like, I love Cherry HIl, New Jersey. It's the best.
Well, it's funny. In Cherry HIl, there's actually a place called the Latin Casino. I remember when I was too young, my brother and my father went to see Don Rickles, and I couldn't go. But Sinatra used to play there. Rickles used to play there. When Steve Martin was building up, he used to play there. And then when that closed, it became a place called Emerald City. And that was like a new wave club. Like the Go-Go's played there. All these bands played there. And once again, I was a little before I was of age to get in. But it was Cherry HIl was always cool, But then the casinos opened in Atlantic City, and they said you can't play within 60 miles. Because they paid a lot more. So all these clubs started dying. I'm like 45 miles from Atlantic City.
Wow. That's certainly a way to put some folks out of business. That sucks.
I know. It was awful.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the hard-hitting question that I ask everybody who's from New Jersey or New York. What's the best pizza?
You mean pizza shop or pizza area?
Pizza shop.
It's so hard because right around the corner from me, I have Tony's Pizzas Fresca, I have Johnny Longshots, and I have Chicante's, and they're all good. They're all a little bit different. But like I'll go to Chicante's if I'm going to get pizza from 5 to 8 on Tuesday night. They have dollar slices. So it's all different. It's just, the pizza, you can't go wrong. I mean, it's like anything, pizza in this area is like a cheesesteak in this area. They're going to be good. Just like if you go to Buffalo, you're going to get good wings. Sure, San Antonio, you probably have good barbecue. The places are good. You just know not to go to Domino's or Pizza Hut.
They even have those there?
Oh yeah. It cracks me up. I get Subway coupons and I go, we have all these great sandwich shops, just great hoagies and cheesesteaks. And I'm like, who the hell is going to Subway? I just cracks me up. Or when I get like an Olive Garden coupon, I'm like, so many great little Italian restaurants. Why would you go to Olive Garden? So the pizza, it's all good. Seriously, you can come here. You can go. I go to a place called Crust and Fire. I take the producer with my business podcast. I'll take him out to lunch once in a while, and they just have awesome pizza.
Well, streetwalkers know what I'm about to say. The best pizza in New York City is in New Jersey, and it is about 6 stops away from Madison Square Garden if you're taking the train. It is in Rahway, New Jersey, and it is basically across the street from the train station, and it is called Nancy's Townhouse. Now, they make all kinds of Italian food, but their pies there, best pizza I've ever had in my entire life. I've been all over the world. This is the best pizza I've ever had. I love it so much. They should sponsor me because every time I talk to anybody from the East Coast, I bring it up. It is amazing. If you're ever in Rahway, check out Nancy's Townhouse.
Well, if I know anyone who goes to Rahway State Prison and I visit them, I will go and I will check it out and I will sit there and tell them you're an idiot because you're in jail, but I just had some great pizza.
You're an idiot because you got caught, but once you get out, bro, go catch that pie.
Exactly.
Steve Cooper, I do have a question for you. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but about 12 years ago or so, you had a little bit of a health scare I want to say it was like a heart condition. Do you got some health issues going on? How you doing? How you feeling?
Actually, okay, I've had two. Okay, 12 years ago, I just met my now wife, and I was bi-coastal. I was going back from LA to New Jersey. And I was at a party and I was feeling really bad. And I remember my friends always had this great party. It was a Memorial Day weekend. And I went up the hill in Burbank and I couldn't get out of bed, but I got up and I went to the party. And I used to smoke cigarettes. And I smoked and I had a glass of wine and they had great lamb chops on the grill. And usually I would close that place down. I hit the margarita machine. We'd be there from like 3 in the afternoon until 12 at night, 1 in the morning. Next day I go to the hospital. So I knew something was wrong. I had congestive heart failure. And they said, you're not going anywhere. So, and I'd flown across country. I'd gone to a Phillies game. I don't know how. I was lucky. And basically, I stayed in the hospital. I changed my whole diet. I cut down my partying, quit smoking and caffeine, just like that. Everything was getting better. And when we moved back east, I guess I had something called AFib, which is your heart goes speeds up. It was the guy knew I had it, but they didn't do anything about it. So I was walking around. I still remember the day. It was I was back in New Jersey. And I went to this place called Deborah. It's a great heart and lung place. And I had interviewed Stu Cook from Creedence Clearwater Revival. And I had backstage passes and front row seats. And I told my buddy, I'm just going to the cardiologist. Well, my AFib was out of control. There's something called an ejection fraction in your heart. It should be 65%, which mine usually was. It was down to 24%. If I had probably not gone that day, and if I just let it go, I probably would have gone into cardiac arrest and died.
At the show? You would have died at the concert?
Possibly. Seriously, I don't know. I mean, it's just, you don't know how, because what AFib is, your heart's racing. So it's like you're running a marathon all the time. And so once again, it's called a cardiac ablation. They burn scar tissue in your heart. And now I'm fine. My heart, like my arteries and everything, they're completely clear. I haven't smoked since. I don't even want a cigarette anymore. Occasionally I might get caffeine by accident, but yeah, it was scary, that especially the last time, because me and Joanne, my wife, we're going to be getting married like 4 months later, and she was all worried. I said, honey, I'm cheap. There's no way I'm dying and losing the deposits. I said, I'm going to at least make that damn wedding. I said, I'm not going to die. But yeah, it was one of those things. It was an awakening. I got it in time, and I listened to my body, which is very important.
Well, thank you for listening to your body, buddy, because you have brought so much into the world since all of that, and that wouldn't have happened. So thank you for keeping an eye on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for caring. I
guess maybe every once in a while you still do it, but you used to do stand-up comedy like all the time. Every once in a while you probably still do it, right?
Yeah, I got lucky. I have a friend, Joe Matarese, who's done Letterman a few times when he was on. And when he was at City Winery in Philly, I opened for him. He took over my apartment in North Jersey when I left New York and moved out west. And I do perform, and then I just hooked up with a place called the Soundplex. And it's this beautiful venue in Pensacola, New Jersey. Downstairs, there's seating for 80. Upstairs, seating for 60 in a full-on recording studio. And then there's a speakeasy. So once a month, I do speakeasy stand-up. And it's basically, I host it. I bring in 2 really strong acts. We have wine tasting before, a piano player. It's just got a really cool vibe. The fall, we may start going to 2 times a month. But we also have some different ideas that I might do stand-up. I did a stand-up show with a guy who was in a band called the Members in Ink from London. And I did a show where I did 30 minutes. He played 30 minutes of songs. Then I interviewed him for 30 minutes. We might do something like that. I do enjoy stand-up. I'm lazy. Like, I'm not going to drive. I did a guest set last Saturday because it was 10 minutes away. I'm not driving an hour unless there's money. And I'm also doing more gigs for businesses now. I'm doing more corporate stuff. Corporate people know me from networking, say, we want an event, can you come in and do some comedy and bring someone else? And so, yeah. So I do enjoy it when I do it, but it's not like I want to do it every night. I mean, if someone said, here's a lot of money, I would, but it's something that it's just fun when I do it.
What was the name of that place you said that has the speakeasy and the upstairs, downstairs?
Soundplex Studios.
And where is that?
It's in Pensacola/Merchantville. It's an old Victory recording building. And I believe Dick Clark had an office there years ago. The inside, you can't even explain it. Everyone who comes in, it says it has the hippest vibe. He has so much local artwork. I always take a picture before the comedy show. Where we do speakeasy stand-up, there's a full-on piano and a full-on drum set. And there's a wall of this local artist. I don't know his name, but he makes like these collages of rock bands, and he sells them, and they're just so cool. And it's such a great picture to get the comics under there, because it shows what the place is all about.
Nice. I hate to go back to medical stuff, but were you born with a cataract? Do I got that right?
Yeah, I was born with a congenital cataract. I went to Will's Eye Hospital. Yeah, still remember this. Will's Eye Hospital was like the top hospital in Philadelphia, and I had Dr. Barnchall. I remember I was in a room with this kid, and we played with dinosaurs. And I remember when I came back from my operation, the kid wasn't there. I found out years later the kid died. That's why he wasn't there. But so I was in this hospital.
Jesus.
I had a cataract, and then when it got taken out, they gave me a patch, and they put a patch over my eye, and everything was blurry. And my parents asked the doctor. They said, if he wears this patch, is it 100% chance he's going to get all his vision back? And the guy's like, no, it's about 50%. So they didn't want to put me through the trauma. So I grew up, my eye has gotten lazier over the years, but I always sit there. I said on stage last night, I have a beautiful wife. So I give every bald guy with a lazy eye hope in the country that they can find someone good. But yeah, it was a cataract. And before then, I just turned 60. It's not like it is now. It wasn't LASIK. There wasn't that. My parents had me wear glasses at one point just for protection. But then as I went older, my eyesight went a little bit in one eye.
Sure. Your parents had you wear glasses for protection. What does that mean?
Safety glasses, just in case. Because, when I was a kid, we were always out playing ball and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just so I wouldn't get poked in the eye or a stick in the eye because, it was the 70s. We were out playing ball in the street all the time.
Yeah. Drinking out of the water hose like animals.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
I need you to tell me about Big Daddy Graham show. What the hell's that? And why does that matter in your life story?
Big Daddy Graham, bless his soul, was a good friend. He was a comic. He was a very popular comic. He was on the radio. And when I started doing comedy, I met him and he would book me on gigs. And we just became friends. It was a thing. He was a little bit older, popular act. And then when I was in LA, I would come back for Thanksgiving and we would have a comics reunion at the Spar. So all the comics, Paul Tompkins, Adam McKay, different comics from Philly, Keith Robinson, Todd Glass, we'd all, Joe Matarese, we'd all show up at the Spar talking. And Big Daddy was knew as I had my podcast going. And he said, I want you to have a segment on my show. So once a week, I would call in from LA. He was the overnight. So I would call at midnight because I would call it, it'd be 3 a.m. there. And we would just talk about LA and talk about stuff. And then he'd always ask me, what actor did I run into? Who did you see today? And I always build it up like it was someone really big. Then I'd be like, it was Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I'd always be a letdown. I'd always give him some D-rate celebrity. And yeah, that went on for a while. It was fun. And it's funny, I did a show a while ago. This guy I went to high school with came with another guy. They're like, dude, we're so glad you're performing. We used to always hear you at a Big Daddy Graham show. And I'm thinking, well, who the hell's up at 3 a.m. that I know? They're all the people I grew up with. They're all business people. And it was cool. And then Big Daddy, he got an accident and he became paralyzed. And I saw him. And then I was supposed to go down to his house before the pandemic. And I think he got in an argument with his wife. And then I found out 2 years ago, maybe he passed away. He was beloved on sports. He did sports talk, but he talked a lot about entertainment. He did it his own way because it was overnight. He was a good guy. He was, he had a podcast where we would talk about the rocking, we did best Scorsese songs or best Christmas songs. I would be on there once in a while too.
Well, man, I'm sorry to keep bringing up all these stories where people die. That's rough, dude. Sorry about that.
I know there's only one. There's only one died.
Well, no, that little boy died.
Oh yeah, but I blocked that.
The little dinosaur boy. Now, you did mention Jonathan Taylor Thomas. It is my understanding that one time you did mind eraser shots with Simba. What?
Okay.
You got to tell that story, bro.
There was a bar in Burbank called the Blue Room. There was a whole 8 or whole 9 yards of Bruce Willis. Then they had another whole 9 yards. The one scene shot in there. If you saw Memento.
I think it was called the whole 10 yards.
Whole 10 yards. Yeah. The next one, there's a scene where they're getting drunk in there. And then if you saw the movie Memento with Guy Pearce, the bar in that is that bar. So I knew the bartender. He was an old roommate. And I used to go and see him. And at the time, mind eraser shots were big. I don't know why. If you don't know people, mind erasers are vodka, I think Kahlua, and club soda. You suck it up through a straw. It's crazy. I guess it messed. So I'm sitting there and I go do one. And there's Jonathan Taylor Thomas sitting next to me. And he's got a puppet on his hand.
A puppet? A puppet on his hand?
Yeah, like a big hand puppet.
In a bar?
Yeah. Don't ask.
I have to ask. What the hell is that?
I don't know. He was just sitting there with a puppet. I don't know what he had the puppet on his head. So I looked at
Well,
my
what
friend
was the
Matt. I said,
puppet? Hold on. What was the puppet? Was it like a Kermit puppet or was
it
it
was like
like
a Kermit, like a Muppet, like, but it wasn't a Muppet. It was just like, it was like a frog. I don't even know I was drunk. And he had it on his hand and he's moving it around. I said, hey, you're the kid from Home Improvement. Here, go do a mind racer. And he looks at it, he did a mind eraser. And I took the puppet off his head and I started using the puppet and he liked it. We did another mind eraser, then I gave him this puppet back. That's LA for you. That's the shit that happens in LA.
That is so weird. Okay, so a long time ago, you moved to the West Coast. Why?
I moved to Vegas for a year with my ex-wife, and I thought I would write out there. And then we ended up moving to San Diego, and then I ended up in LA. It was one of those moves, you know, it all brought me full circle. At the time, I don't know why we moved. I don't know why we moved to San Diego. I think I was just like being a good husband, even though she was a train wreck. Yeah, so I just ended up, and I moved to LA to follow my career. And we got divorced, and I was out there.
And by career, was it stand up at the time?
I was getting back into, I was trying to get into writing, and I got a job writing jokes for a website. And then I ended up in corporate marketing for a restaurant. But I did stand up occasionally, but I was trying to get writing gigs going. I had an acting agent. I used to go out on commercial auditions. I did some featured background shows. I was in an awful, awful movie called Killer Drag Queens on Dope with Alexis Arquette, that's her soul, and Freddie Boom Boom Washington. My sidekick was a guy named Mark Beltzman, who, if you ever saw Billy Madison, Norm Macdonald and Adam Sandler and him hung out. And he was also on an episode of Seinfeld where he's the chef that George steals the suit at the restaurant. He's been in a lot of stuff, but we were in that. So yeah, it was just one of those things. LA was just, LA, you're always grinding, and you've had actors on your show. They'll get something and they won't work forever. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty nuts. So you said you did marketing for a restaurant. Was that Planet Hollywood?
No, I was a waiter at Planet Hollywood.
You were a waiter at 3 of them, right?
Yeah, Vegas, San Diego, then Beverly Hills. It was a restaurant called Granville Cafe. I did event planning and marketing for a place I was a waiter at called Gordon Bierce. Then I went to Granville, which was an upstart restaurant. I worked for them for about a year and a half.
Gotcha. Tell me something fun about working at Planet Hollywood.
Okay. This is a funny story. Beverly Hills celebrities always came in. So one day, Gary Coleman comes in.
There's about to be a documentary on that dude.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, like it starts like next week on Hulu or something like that. It's going to be like a 4-part documentary or something like that.
I got to watch it because he comes in and he sits there and he goes, I go, yeah, hey, how you doing? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'll take my regular. I go, okay. I was new, Beverly Hills. I just transferred up there. I go back to the manager, go, what's his regular? He goes, well, he abused his comp so much. Because they used to comp, Planet Hollywood comp everybody. Like if you're a celebrity. So he would order all this stuff, and then he never tipped. So they said, screw it. So he could only get 1 order of chicken tenders, a French fry, and a soda. And then he wouldn't tip. He wanted a job as a host there because he loved the place so much. And another cool thing is before Austin Powers came out, we had a screening room in Beverly Hills. We all got to see it before it came out. And we'd have like Stallone would be up there watching movies, Schwarzenegger, like everybody came in that restaurant in Beverly Hills.
So you got to watch Austin Powers before it was in the theaters?
Yeah, like the 2 nights before. It was really cool. They gave us drinks and food. They just looked at us. It was a tourist trap. If you wanted to see celebrities, I actually pitched a script when we were about to close to a guy from I think a UTA, United Talents Agency. I talked to him at the table and I told him my idea, sent him the screenplay, and they passed on it. It was pretty cool because I knew the place was closing, so they're not going to fire you. So I just pitched the guy because I knew he worked. His name was Bill Block, I think, but he worked for UTA, which was in the same building in Beverly Hills that Planet Hollywood was.
Oh, cool. I love that you were like, fuck it. What are they going to do? Fire me? This place is closing.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is going to sound weird because it's so off topic. Did you write a cookbook?
Yeah. Right here. Stop the salt. Low sodium cooking for well without killing yourself. I was always at happy hours, eating crappy food.
Yeah, stand-up comics don't have the best diet.
Yeah, and this was even down when you're a single guy in LA. When I started dating Joanne, I said, I should write a cookbook because I always, after I changed my diet, I would cook for one at home because she was living back in New Jersey now, and I was out there, and I would come visit her, and when she'd be at work, I'd have free time. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a cookbook. And it's nothing good. I just, I went through the internet, found different recipes that look cool, tweaked them a little bit, made them no sodium. And I think, and maybe every few months I might get like $3 from it. But it was just something I wanted to accomplish, and I did it. And I forget, so many times I forget that I even wrote it. Like you brought it up, I doesn't even register anymore because I just forget.
Hilarious. Again, We're going all over the place.
Hi.
From cookbooks to hand modeling.
Yeah.
Let me see those beautiful bad boys. Ooh la la.
I was in LA. A casting call came up for NCIS. They wanted pictures of hands, so my agent sent mine in, and I went on set. And the director must have had an idea that he wanted an insert put in another scene, and to bring in the actor they had would have cost, SAG day rate, whatever. For me, it was like $250 to bring me in. And so I went in there. I went with the second unit, sat by myself. They put an Apple box up. I pushed my finger on underneath the table twice. I was pushing a button, and that was it. And then when Westworld did the same thing, they needed someone, and I went like this, like I was getting stabbed. I had 2 hand model gigs. I got SAG vouchers for that. I never joined SAG. I could. You need 3 vouchers. I had 4 or 5, but I never joined.
That is so weird.
Yeah.
I know that when all the actors get credited, but do the hand models did you
No, we don't get anything.
No names.
No, because we're taking place of the actor that they don't want to bring back in that day to pay.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Cooper, he has a podcast. It is called Cooper Talk. A lot of people started podcasting a while back, but check this out. This dude, Steve Cooper, has well over 1,000 episodes of Cooper Talk. You heard me right. Well over 1,000. Now, if you were to pull up Cooper Talk right now on the iTunes, it only says episode 500. But no, I promise you. Well, what's really funny is, for whatever reason, maybe the first 175 are not on iTunes.
iTunes maxes you at 500.
There you go. I use a different app, but it pulls from iTunes. And so it says 837 episodes. The most recent one is episode 500, 6 days ago. What? No, it's over 1,000, ladies and gentlemen. And when I say over 1,000, I don't mean he's interviewing the newspaper boy from down the street. I mean, we're talking Thomas Dolby, Howard Jones, Joe Satriani, D.D. Pfeiffer, Willie Garson, God rest his soul, Gavin Rossdale, Joey Pants, Joey Pantoliano. Again, there's over 1,000, so I couldn't possibly name all of them. But just off the top of your head, throw out a couple of names that either you were surprised you could get, or it was a more amazing conversation than you had even hoped.
Well, surprising I could get, it was Ed Asner. And when I started my show, I recorded it in the studio in Burbank. So it wasn't like doing it this. They had to physically come to the studio in Burbank. And I had this guy, James Dumont. I think he's been on your show. James.
Both of those have, yeah. Ed's been on twice. Well, I say has been. He's not like he's coming back.
Right.
So Ed was on twice, and James has been on 2 or 3 times.
Well, James did my show. I reached out to him on Facebook because we had a lot of mutual friends, and I had to go through his PR person. I think it was Charles Sherman. Charles came in and loved what I did.
Charles came in
their studio. Yeah, he was. I think he sat with James.
Oh, cool.
Because this was 12, 13 years ago. People weren't really doing podcasts. They didn't know what the hell was going on. I sent him an email. I said, "Who else are your clients?" And he listed Ed Asner. I'm thinking there's no way in hell I'm going to get Ed Asner. How about Ed Asner? And he's like, "All right, how about next week?" And so that was one that came very easily and very surprising. I didn't think I could get it. I'll be honest. I get people, I'm surprised. Mick Mars for my 1,000th episode, going back and forth with his manager, a guy named Steve Karras. And I had taken the guy from the band Jackal, and then this other guy, Henry, I forget his name. He played with Marshall Tucker or one of those people, but he had a really good story. So I had him on my show, and we just created a relationship. And, I went back and forth with Mick, forever. And it was I don't know what we can do. I don't know. Eventually, and Steve told me, I think he said he had close to 900 requests for Mick Mars, and he only did 20 interviews. So that was cool. I felt proud of that one. And, you never know what kind of communication you're going to get. Stephen Bauer from Scarface, Stephen came on, and I met him at a bar years ago in LA. He never did my show, but then finally he came on.
And this was last year, right? I remember that episode. It was super dope. Yeah.
Yeah. This 6 months ago. We did an hour and 45, and then I said I had to cut it. I was like, I can't go any. I don't like to go that long. He came back and did another hour 45. So I was like, this is amazing. One that also was easy to get, which surprised me and was great, It's just I saw Springsteen the other night, was a Steven Van Zandt. I thought there's no way in hell. I know somebody who said, "Oh, I'm reaching out for Steven Van Zandt." I was like, "There's no way in hell I can get Steven Van Zandt. No way." And I always tell these people, they're like, "I'll do 30 minutes." I said, "No, we did 45 minutes to an hour. I'll occasionally do 30. The company, I think I did 20, which was also very easy to get because it's a PR person like me.
Because he was pushing like a book or an album.
An album. Yeah. And,
Okay.
but Van Zandt, we talked for like an hour and 10 minutes and it was great. I really enjoyed it because I'm a huge Springsteen fan and The Sopranos and Lillehammer, Thomas Dolby last week, we talked. I get in good conversations with these people. And I think because lately I've been bringing the creative process in more because I don't care about the bullshit stories. A lot of podcasters want the dirt. They want to get in like Metal magazine. It's like when I interviewed George Lynch, I was in like 9 things, like blabbermouth, not mention my art. Me and George improv for the first 20 minutes. He was trying to mess with me. Another podcaster with a folder book because I have a comedy background. I ran with them. I talk to these guys and it amazes me the people that I've talked to and just that I've become friends with. Willie Garson did my show twice, bless his soul. And I got Willie on other shows and he was such a nice gentleman that everybody in Hollywood loved. Yeah. And I've just, Peter Murnick is a character actor. I met him when he was in Philly. We met for drinks. Rich Redmond, I just saw him at his show. I've gone backstage. I've hung out with Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet. These guys, it just amazes me. When people say, who's your favorite interview? I can never say it because so many of them are connected to me in the 80s music, take me back to a certain time. The actors, Patrick Fabian from Better Call Saul. I got him on after the second season. No one really knew who he was, but I liked the show. And so my friend Spencer Garrett reached out. Patrick did it. And then Better Call Saul starts blowing up. So I sent Patrick a message on Facebook. I don't want to text him or call him. I have his number because I haven't talked to him in a few years. And I said, "Hey, man, I was going to call you, but I haven't talked to you I was going to text you. I haven't talked to you in like 3 or 4 years." He's like, "Coop, text away. I'll come on the show." So then when that show ended, I texted Patrick. I said, "Hey, dude, you want to come back on, talk about the show?" And he said, "Yeah." So I became friendly with him. And it's just Gregory Harrison, I see him in movies because my wife watches a lot of episodic TV. When I see someone, I'll throw in their Facebook, "Hey, I just saw you from," like Spencer Garrett. "I just saw you on Criminal Minds from 2015 or, 2009. The one thing I'm going to say, though, there hasn't been anyone who's been a jerk. The only jerks I encountered was when I first started Cooper Talk. I would get smaller club comics in LA. Like one guy was a jerk and he was a nobody, but it was like, they're not on my podcast. So I've done actually more than 1,020. I have like 70 that never sold Dead the Day or my website because back then it was strictly an internet radio station.
Ah, got you.
And our friend Reed Diamond. Reed's done my show 3 times.
That dude is such a badass.
Well, he was thinking of moving to Maine. And my friend Peter Murnick, who's a character actor, who if you watch Seinfeld, he was the detective who messed up Kramer when they took him to jail in LA to be the killer. I met Peter in Philly when he was visiting his son, and Peter lives in Maine. So then I hooked him and Reed up. They both know of each other's work. But yeah, Reed is a sweetheart. He always says he trusts me for a podcast. If I like someone, I'm like, I can get you right on. Because I'll send him a message. "Hey, Reed, can you do the show?" "Oh, yeah, definitely, Coop. If you say it's cool, I'll do it."
He was such a great interview. I enjoyed that guy so much. And every once in a while, I'll reach out to him, "Hey, I saw you on this, I saw you on that," or whatever.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
What made you start a podcast? Again, we talked to you've been doing this for it's got to be like 15 years or something. What made you
12, 13? I don't know. Maybe 14. I don't know. Well, here's what happened. I was doing marketing for a restaurant, and I was at a Chamber of Commerce event, and I met this guy who had an internet radio station. I'm still on it, so it's Indie 100 now, but back then it was WHYH92.5.com. And someone said Cooper would be really good to do a show. He's entertaining. So I went in and I had to do a show that was half independent music and half interview. So I called like Paul Tompkins, my old friend. I called John Matt. I called different people, comics I met at the club. Cato Kalin, I met him in a club. He came on. The guy who ran it came in one time and said, "Man, you're getting a lot of listeners. Just go straight talk." So I started doing hour chunks of talk. And I was getting different people. And then it was just fun. I started reaching out to actors, character actors that I saw on TV, if they're on Twitter or Facebook. remember I got Robbie Benson. I was like, Robbie Benson, that's awesome, because he was so big back in the day. He came in studio. So I just started getting people, and I just loved it. And I was getting all actors. And I got a musician named Troy Patrick Farrell, who played drums for White Lion. And we became good friends. He got me Gilby Clarke.
Jesus.
I really couldn't get musicians because a lot weren't living in LA. But I got like Ray Lazier from Korn, and I had Kenny Aronoff, who's an amazing, amazing session drummer. When the studio closed, that's when I started getting more musicians. But I remember I met Rich Redmond, Aldean's drummer, at a party from Lucky Lehrer from the Circle Jerks, who's also a tax attorney who had like a $6 million mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Met Rich at a party and we hit it off. He did my show in studio. And then when my studio closed, he ended up getting me Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel, Carmine Appice, Kelly Keagy from Night Ranger, Troy Lucatetta from Tesla. So I started networking. And then as I was doing it, I got to know people, and I was in with those character actors. They knew me because everyone said, oh, Coop's a good match. He's a good guy. So I would have those recommendations. I'd pitch them on Facebook. When someone go on and listen to my show they always were impressed by the interview because I do a good interview. I talk to the people. And then with musicians, I just got tight with the PR people. Like Hollywood PR people, I can't get many people from them. But the musicians, I love it. So yeah, and it was just a labor of love, and I loved it. And then, I been playing on different internet radio stations, and now I'm on Radio Garden State, which just came out. It's all about it has New Jersey creators. I'm in indie rock radio out of Montreal. And I send them a file. Sometimes, if I don't have a show, because like sometimes it's been hard getting guests for me lately. I do have, though, Kyle Secor on Monday, who is Homicide. The show was a great show. Just got released on Peacock after 30 years.
Homicide: Life on the Streets.
Yeah. Kyle did my show 8 years ago. And I said, come back on. He said, I love to. So he'll be doing it.
That's actually a callback to Reed Diamond. Yeah. He was on 69 episodes of that show.
Well, the funny thing about Reed is Reed came on second season. And he took the place of John Polito, who was on my show, bless his soul, who was on the first season. It was so weird because John is that little short, bald Italian guy, and Reed's this young, pretty boy. And it was just so weird how they replaced him with someone completely off character.
And I found out when I was talking to Reed that he knew Andre Braugher from Juilliard.
Yeah, they all these guys are intertwined. They got to know each other, and it's wonderful. And they all stay close. They all, I've talked to a lot of character actors that said years ago they couldn't stand each other because they're all competition. But now it went from like 1,500 of them to like 30 of them now, like 30 years later. And when someone gets the role, they understand why that person got the role and why they did it.
It's really cool because the more you talk to these people, whether they're actors or musicians or whatever, athletes, whatever, you find out that those industries at the heart of it, they're just like any other business. If you just stay in it long enough, you're going to rise. I mean, if you have any talent and if you're at all good at what you do, if you just don't quit, you're going to rise up.
Oh, yeah, totally. You
also have another podcast. It is called The Coop Tank. Tell me more about that.
Okay, The Coop Tank's funny. I have two big network groups: Coffee with Cooper, which is online. I do Cocktails with Cooper, which is an event once a month. And I get like 65, 75 people. But from that, I became big in networking. I met a young guy with a studio. And I said, listen, I'll help you get a podcast studio, Sweet Recording, my friend Joe Gangemi. I said, I'll help you promote your show. I'll help you promote the studio. I'll share you with my network. Give me a show in there. He said, all right. So I started off doing one-on-one interviews with people who created a brand in the Philly area or business owners who created a company. Joe Conklin, who's a big radio guy, Dave Raymond, the original Philly fanatic, a bunch of different people. And then what happened was I noticed all these other young people were starting podcasts and they were getting these guests on and they were crappy interviews. There was no distinction. So I said, I want to change it. So I changed it to a format where I moderate three other business people. And we talk about business. I ask them questions about motivation, about fears, just different stuff that they don't get. And then people dig it. And business people come on, love it because they really open up. And I've had people say, I've never been on a podcast. I'd like to try it. I'm a little worried. I said, dude, I'm a professional. I've done close to 100 episodes of that now. But I said, I've done over 1,100 interviews. I said, you'll be fine. And what's funny with the business people, though, is because a lot of these newer podcasts are like, oh, someone asked me, so do we get to questions? And I said, no, why would I give you questions? I said, because a lot of these people think, oh, we're going to give them questions. They want to be interviewers. They don't want to, podcasting is conversation. Yeah, so it's been good. It's been fun. I record on Fridays it's good. And I get to know people. And it gives people a way to actually express themselves, because when you go into these breakout rooms and business events, it's all pretense. They're all BSing. It's honest. I ask them, what do you do when you fail? How do you feel? And people open up a lot. And I think because there's three of them, that they feel confident. And a lot of times they don't know each other. And I've been very lucky that I just throw paddles together and they've worked. But occasionally I do an all-female panel, which then we can really get into about, as I call the syndrome, which I fall in the demographic, but I'm not, the creepy old white guy at networking events. And they really open up about being hit on and stuff like that. And it's very interesting. And I enjoy it. And it makes me grow as a host, because it's just not one-on-one. I have the one-on-one down, not to be arrogant, but I'm good at it. A guy who has a big podcast blog just sent me a message. He listened to 10 of my episodes and he said, forget about Joe Rogan, because you're one of the best interviewers in the podcasting world. I have that down, but I still learn every day. I did some interview a while ago and I didn't think it was good. And someone sent me, oh man, that interview was great. And I was like, oh, thanks. But no, this helps me learn as a host, because I'm dealing with three other people and I'm quiet. I always say my show has never been about me. I let the people talk. I'm funnier on the Coop Tank, not funny, but I talk more. I inject more stuff. But with Cooper Talk, when I bring people on, people aren't listening for me. They're listening for the interview. And so, I had Tom Arnold on and I just had him tell me like 3 stories. It was great. I was dying.
I just listened to that one yesterday.
He's a nut. His stories were amazing.
They were.
As Letterman, I saw Letterman one time, interview Richard Harris, and he said, hey, just have 3 good stories. That's all you need. And it's true. And if you have 3 good stories, you can build a whole hour around that, because a good story could segue into something else.
As long as it's a good storyteller, like Tom Arnold, he tells great stories. Like he's really good at being a storyteller. I've interviewed some fools who I'm just like, you've never told a story in your life, bro.
Okay, yeah, it's funny. I had one actor who just kept talking. It's so funny. My buddy was like, "Oh my god, shut up!" But it was interesting.
I kind of like it sometimes when the guest doesn't shut up, because like the way I look at it, kind of like you said, they're not tuning in to listen to me, and so it for a while there, I was sort of gauging whether or not it was a good show by how much I talked. So the less I talked, the better I thought the show was.
Yeah, and for me, I'll be honest. When I do Cooper Talk, I do my research. I don't write any questions out. It's all off the cuff. My whole show is off the cuff. Like I had Lamal from Kaja Gugu. I told a story about how that song in college, it was sort of Too Shy to Shy was sort of slow and fast. So, if you got a girl to dance with that, you might get her to the slow song and it might, hooking up. And he just told me a whole story about how it was originally, I just do it that way. I let it fly because I want it to be, I call my show Organic Chats, because I don't want to write questions. That's not my structure. Comedy is a background, you have to think on your feet on stage. And that's what I do.
Do you ever have a guest, and the Tom Arnold one is really what made me think of it. Like, is there anything you stay away from? Like on my show, I don't talk politics at all, ever. Never, ever, either side, don't care. It doesn't come up. If it does come up, I edit it out because I don't like politics. And more importantly, I don't want to alienate half of the audience. So is there anything that you don't talk about? Is there anything taboo or you say, no, we're not going to talk about that or whatever?
I don't bring up politics. I did with Tom because it was a very funny story, how he got thrown out. I knew that'd be funny. That wasn't a political story. That was just a funny story.
True.
I know that. I don't like to bring politics up because I'm like you. I'm an independent. I don't give a shit. You're not on my show to talk politics. Nick Searcy is one of the most hardcore right wingers. I had him on years ago. We didn't talk politics. We talked about his acting. I don't like to talk tragedy and TMZ bullshit unless they bring it up. Like I had Jack Russell, bless his soul, on from Great White. And there's no way in hell I was going to talk about that fire he had. There's no way. Because first of all, it's been asked. And to me, you're going to ruin an interview. It's not something I want to talk about. But from that, not bringing that up, he ended up saying, yeah, we were open for Aerosmith. And Steven Tyler's like, you're the dude who shot the maid. And I'm like, what? And then he went on to tell me this amazing story how he was stealing coke from a house when he was younger and he was on Angel Dust and he shot a maid. And it was just amazing. They'll bring those stories up. I don't like to ask anything real personal, because you know what? The bottom line is my show is about your career, the creative process. And if they bring it up, it's fine. I've had people bring up stories that they just, oh, we've heard your show. I mean, people always end up breaking out with stories sometimes. That's fine, but I don't care about politics. I don't care about dirt. When I interviewed Joe Satriani, which people loved, they thought it was a very inspirational interview because he has such a good story. I personally really didn't know a lot about it, but I know a few songs. My friends play guitars, and I know he didn't do a lot of podcasts, so I reached out and I got him. That's when he was rumored that he might go with Van Halen, and now they're on tour. But I didn't bring that up because you know what? I don't care. I don't care that you can go because that's what the scrub podcasters are going to ask. They're going to ask you, hey, so what's up with you and Van Halen? And then right then, if he doesn't want to talk about it, your whole interview is tainted.
Right. Yeah, the whole thing. I interviewed a girl a couple of weeks ago. She had a movie coming out, and she's got like 5 movies coming out next year. But there was this whole thing like in the news right around the time I was talking to her about she was in talks to be like the next Bond girl. And I had seen in my research that it kind of wasn't really firmed up. It was just sort of hinted at. And I also kind of gathered that she kind of didn't want to jinx anything. So I didn't even bring it up at all, ever. And I still don't know. I still don't know if she's going to be the next Bond girl. But yeah, to your point, I was just like, well, I don't want to bring that up because that's what everybody is talking about right now. When I was doing all the research, and I mean, it was everywhere. That's all everybody was talking about. I'm like, well, fuck all that. I'll talk about something else. They can find that elsewhere. It's like when I interviewed Don McLean, I even said in the interview, I was like, look, everybody, his most famous song is, American Pie, but we're not going to talk about that because you can literally listen to any other interview he's ever done in the last 70 years. And that's what they're going to talk about. So we didn't even talk about that at all. We just talked about everything else.
Don McLean ate peanuts during my interview.
Fucking guy. Love it.
Yeah, I did a phone with him, and then he said, oh, I got to go. So his PR guy goes, you can do it tomorrow on Zoom. And he's sitting there eating peanuts. And I'm like, hey, screw this shit. That song's so great. But to me, he reminds me of the Willie Loman of pop singers. He's saying, yeah, you're not in the rock and roll. He's in a songwriter. And he's made so much money. But it was funny. I don't know. He was a nice guy, but it just seemed like it was about him. About him.
I'm right there with you. He was a nice guy, but boy, is it about him.
Yeah, and I don't like that in interviews because most of the people I meet aren't. Some of these people are so damn humble. I mean, I've interviewed over 60 members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's a lot.
They're all just humble and they have stories and they're nice. But most creative people are like that.
Well, I don't know about most, but a ton of them. I will go with you on that one. The ones I have met are like Robbie Benson. You mentioned Robbie Benson. I haven't interviewed him, but it's kind of weird. We were at a memorial service together and I didn't go up to him because that's not the place, but he was super nice to everybody there. He got up and talked a little bit and it was good to see him. And he's a director and he does all kinds of crazy shit now. And it was just good to see him in an environment where, like you said, like late 70s, early 80s, this dude was the man. He was number one everywhere. And to see him, be humble to everybody around him that day. And Henry Winkler was there too. And the same thing, like just the most gracious, down to earth, like it was rad.
Robbie Benson was so nice. And he came in with his wife, Carla DeVito, and he gave me they sent me his autobiography before and he signed it. And he's had heart problems. He had a heart transplant. He's had like heart problems this whole time. And I told him my story. And he's like, make sure you get the back. He was really cool. And it was just cool because he was so big. And, he was a valedictorian of his high school. Really interesting cat, and the reason he got into directing is because he really couldn't get insured with his heart issues as an actor.
Wow.
Like the set couldn't get insurance.
Right. Like who would have ever, like, how do you even get that story unless you talk to him? That's a nugget. That's awesome. I love it. Steve Cooper, we're going to wind up here. I'm going to need you to do me a couple of favors. I need you to tell everybody the name of, I think it's 4 podcasts, right? Cooper Talk, Cooper, the Coop Tank. And then you have a coffee and cocktails.
No, there's 2 podcasts. The Coffee with Cooper, they're all network.
Oh, okay.
You go to coopertalk.net. Go there because you can find it on all the other Spotify, iHeart, all that stuff. But if you go to my website, you'll actually see a picture of who they are. Because a lot of times you hear the name, but you don't know who they are. And I put what band it was. So that way you get an idea. Like Penelope Ann Miller, you may not know her name, but when you see her, you go, "Oh, I know Penelope Ann Miller."
Or Stuart Pankin, you had him on.
Yeah, Stuart. Yeah, once you see them, that's his character. That's why they're character actors. Ray Abruzzo, who played Little Carmine, just different people like that. That's coopertalk.net. if you want to watch my business podcast, go to YouTube. I'm focusing on a YouTube show there. It's just search The Coop Tank. I think there's 58 episodes up. You can go to thecooptank.podbean.com and Spotify, and there's like 100 episodes. They're the one-on-one interviews, but just go to The Coop Tank on YouTube.
Gotcha. How long do you plan on doing this?
Well, I stopped, man. I get a lot of free concert tickets. I met a lot of cool people. Yeah, it's as long as I can get guests. I'm not pursuing it. I've gotten lazy lately, but that would always happen. I'm not getting responses from people. But then I always sit there and go, you know what? I haven't had this guest on for 8 years. Like, I'm going to reach out to Paul Ben Victor again, who's done my show twice. He's wonderful. I know there'll be a good guest. Reed, as I said, Reed will come on. Reed's been on 3 times. Redden has been on 3 times. I can reach out to people, but I'll keep doing it as long as people want to talk to me.
Love it. Everybody, again, Cooper Talk is the one I listen to. I haven't listened to The Coop Tank, but I may.
Watch it. Go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it on YouTube. Definitely go check out coopertalk.net. And you have all 1,020 or whatever it is on the site?
Yeah.
Oh, rad.
You can scroll down and down and down and down and down and down. If you like 80s music, I mean, just in the last few months, Thomas Dolby, Tom Bailey from the Thompson Twins, Jack Hughes from Wang Chung, bunch of others. I go in streaks from actors and musicians, actors. During the strike, I really couldn't get actors because they couldn't talk. But it's good. Then there's some great, you'll see these people and go, I remember that person. I like that person.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Even if you just scroll through some of those names, and if you're on the website, then some of those faces, you'll immediately find, 50 that you're immediately going to listen to as soon as you can. And then you'll just go through the rest. It's a lot of fun.
And you like the Getty Watanabe interview.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
He was wonderful. He was such a sweet man.
That guy's rad as hell. Well, Steve Cooper, before I let you go, man, is there anything we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you specifically wanted to talk about today? Like, did we cover the big bits?
Yeah, we're good, man. Just, you can follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk, Instagram at Cooper Talk 1, TikTok, I'm at Cooper Talk. I only do a stupid character called Kid Coop. I act like an old man, and these young kids actually think it's me. But I only post videos there once every few weeks. But my Eagles won when they were in the Super Bowl. I got 10,000 views, which was surprising.
Oh, wow. Sweet. That's cool. Well, until next time, buddy, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic interviewing a legend's schedule.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Have a great weekend.
No, you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you later, my friend. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin.
Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.